Well, hello everybody, and welcome to this Tuesday's MBE Movie News. That was a terrible start, but we'll get right on with it. I am, of course, John Christopher Walsh, here from MBE to discuss more movie news. And as you've probably seen by the title and by the thumbnail, I'm here to speak about, well, yesterday's news in a sense, but it's such a barren time for news just now. If you're not wanting to speak about Cinemark doing a deal with Universal, which I will be speaking about later, but if you don't want to make that your headline, then you're pretty much screwed today, guys. So I'm going with Chadwick Boseman and a Marvel studio producer coming out and confirming that there will not be any CGI body doubles being used for the character in the upcoming Black Panther 2. This article is coming in from Cinema Blend, and as you can see here, it's penned by Corey Chichizola. What a name! Why did I have to get such a bland name? John Walsh, Corey Chichizola. Truly fantastic name. But look, I digress. Here's the very lengthy quote coming in from said producer. I don't know who it is. It's Victoria Alonso. That's who it is. And she has had this to say: no, there's only one Chadwick, and he's not with us. Our king, unfortunately, has died in real life, not just in fiction, and we are taking a little time to see how we return to history and what we do to honour this chapter of what has happened to us that was so unexpected, so painful, so terrible, really. Because Chadwick was not only a wonder of being human every day that we spent together, the 5 years that we spent together, but also it seems to me that as a character that he did elevated us as a company. Terribly written quote, incidentally, from the heart, but terribly written or spoken, and has left his moment in history. I know that sometimes 2 months go by or 3 months go by in production, and one says already it was a long time, but it's not a long time. We have to think carefully about what we are going to do and think about how we are going to honour the franchise. This is absolutely the correct decision from Marvel Disney. If this producer Victoria Alonso is indeed get any real sway in the upper echelons of Disney, the machine that is Disney, it's absolutely the correct decision to do. No CGI body double for Chadwick Boseman. Look, I spoke about Chadwick. We done our sort of tribute to the man when he passed away. I couldn't believe it. I still can't believe it. It's nearly 3 months on. The guy is no longer with us. He was such a charismatic, kind, decent, thoroughly decent human being, and a truly stupendous actor to boot. He was really the Black Panther to me. I can't imagine anyone else playing Black Panther in that form, in that vein, again. That's why it's almost contradictory at what I'm saying, because I kind of would like to see him again, but sadly he's no longer with us, and we don't want to disrespect his memory, what he brought to the character. And as we've seen with the Guy Henry performance with obviously Peter Cushing's Grand Moff Tarkin, him doubling as a body for that, they put a CGI face on him. He was really good. He got the mannerisms right, he got the speech right. Peter had a very intriguing way of speaking. He rolled his R's. And Guy got that right, but he just couldn't imbue the CGI likeness with any life. There's a limit to what humanity can do with CGI just now. And you don't want that happening with this character. You don't want someone doubling as him. It wouldn't be authentic, it would be wrong. It was seen James Dean's going to be appearing in a movie shortly. They wanted to cast James Dean's likeness, even though he's been gone for 70 years. It's just wrong. It doesn't sit right with me morally, ethically, any level whatsoever. And look, I suppose there could be arguments made for and against this. I'm going to bring the graphic up, incidentally. Arguments made for and against it. People would argue that commercially it would make the movie a little bit more successful. It would draw more eyeballs in to watch the movie if they marketed it as the last hurrah for Chadwick Boseman as Black Panther. Much like we've seen with Paul Walker, I believe it was, in Fast and Furious. They marketed it as his last hurrah. Of course, he was alive for much of that movie. He died tragically in an accident, and they superimposed his likeness onto, I believe, his brother's face for that final farewell between him and the Vin Diesel character. And I suppose you could go to that and say, look, there's actual palpable evidence that marketing this movie as the last hurrah for the character and using it very sparingly, it could work. But then there's also the contradictory argument that it's just morally and ethically wrong. It's too soon. Peter Cushing died many years ago. I can't recall how far back it was actually. I think it was probably the mid-1990s. So there was a 35, nearly 40 year gap between him dying, 30 year gap probably, between him dying and his likeness being used in Rogue One. It's not the same here with Chadwick Boseman. This movie would be getting made in a year and a half's time. It's too close, it's still too tender, and it would be just wrong, man. It'd be wrong to the guy's memory. And look, the other reason it shouldn't be done is because we already have a litany of truly talented actors in that Black Panther cast. I mean, the first one that springs to mind is Letitia Wright. Everyone really wants to see Shuri taking over the mantle of Black Panther, the baton being posthumously handed on to her. She's a really great actor. She won I think it was a BAFTA for up and coming actor a couple of years ago. She's really, really talented, again, really charismatic, likeable off the screen. And she's the sister of, obviously, T'Challa. So she could theoretically take the baton in the actual story, the universe. And in real life, she's talented enough to do it as well. And Black Panther's just a title. It's not solely belonging to Chadwick Boseman's T'Challa character. It is a title. It is ancestrally passed on. Two different characters anyway, so it's something that works in various ways, passing it on. And it's better because you get a real palpable living being acting out the performance, and you're not having to work on CGI that's taking you out the movie. It's becoming a spectacle, a circus if you like. You're drawn to just looking at the face and not focusing on what's happening in the story and the performance and perhaps the emotional aspect of it, perhaps T'Challa passing away in the movie. Likewise, you have the likes of Daniel Kaluuya in there. You've got Winston Duke playing M'Baku, the North King, I believe, the Mountain King in Wakanda. Nothing to say that if Letitia's not up for it, and the Hedgings like Bob Chapek and Kevin Feige and Victoria Alonso, if they're not up for giving her the role, what's to say they can't give it to Winston Duke, another compelling character who's got strength. I tell you what though, I guarantee you that the studio are absolutely kicking themselves for killing off Eric Killmonger, played by the unbelievable talent that is Michael B. Jordan, a tour de force. There's only really one other guy that I can think of today's generation of actors that can come even close to a Chadwick Boseman from the black community. I mean, I'm maybe being wrong there. There's so many great actors out there, and just in the spur of the moment I'm maybe picking out Michael B. Jordan, but I think he's about the closest sort of thing that we've got in spirit and in human and sort of humanity and just in acting and raw talent to a Chadwick Boseman. I think it's Michael B. Jordan, and sadly they killed him off in the first Black Panther movie. It wasn't really necessary. They could have let him live, and he could have took on the mantle of Black Panther moving forward. Close friends with Chadwick as well. That would have been poignant as hell. But look, sadly, he's no longer with us. It's a real chasm that's been left in the MCU. It's a chasm that's been left in hearts of fans and minds of fans throughout the world. And I'm just so glad to see that Disney are not doing the unpalatable thing of using a body double and using CGI just to bring him back in for monetary gain. They understand the tragedy surrounding this man's passing, and it's only fitting and correct that he is laid to rest, and they somehow write it into the story that he's no longer with us. And yeah, I'm looking forward to Black Panther 2 though. I'm looking forward to seeing how they rejig it. Just sort of cherishing and bringing on the sort of celebrating the memory of Chadwick in this movie, and enriching and maybe I don't know, infusing and perhaps some other adjective that I can't think of, a new generation of young black people to be better than what they currently are, to aspire to greatness, to be an actor like Chadwick. But look man, I'm going to move on. I'm starting to gibber, and that's dangerous. To the second topic, and it's aforementioned Cinemark and Universal deal. I didn't even speak about Oliver Reed incidentally. I meant to fling him in. That time he died in the middle of Gladiator, and they just sort of used a scene from the movie and put it on his head. That was terrible as well, so that's another reason why it just doesn't work, man. You do not use CGI. But look, aforementioned Cinemark and Universal deal, they have signed a new deal to shorten the theatrical window, and of course this was something that AMC done a couple of months back, to much grinding of teeth, much moaning from various different spheres within the big huge sort of machine that is the film industry. Not just studios, not just the exhibitors, but fans and commentators alike were coming out and absolutely bashing AMC, a company which is facing an existential, it's a big fancy word, crisis at this sort of mark in its history. They were battered in the press. I says it was acceptable. This pandemic's bringing a whole array of changes to the world, not all positive, not all negative. And it was long overdue that the film industry had a revamp in the way that it handled film releases and the way that it dealt with the elephant in the room that is digital releases, streaming, the sort of growing concern from traditional studios and filmmakers alike, the likes of Steven Spielberg, about the prominence of streaming services now, the likes of Amazon Prime, Apple TV Plus, and Disney have restructured the whole studio in a sense to focus on TV and streaming. So it was inevitable that this was going to happen. Anyone who's looked at music 20 years ago, who's looked at various other different mediums in entertainment, will realise that this was inevitable. Everything moves from analogue to digital eventually, and this is just the next medium of entertainment to do it. But here's a quote, a very lengthy quote indeed. Don't know who's speaking just now about this quote. I'm going to have a little look. It's the chairman of Universal. It's been coming out to say this. Universal's century long... Can't speak today. Wow. Century long. I can't speak. Let's try that for a third time and just hope it works. Universal's century long partnership with exhibition is rooted in theatrical experience. I got there in the end. Century long. It's a bit of a tongue twister. And as we are more committed than ever for audiences to experience our movies on the big screen, Mark Zuradi and the team at Cinemark have been outstanding partners, and Peter Levinson, the Vice Chairman and Chief Executive Chief Distribution Officer, UFEG, has done a remarkable job. I didn't need to read that, I'm digging myself a hole here, on the studio's behalf, on making deals that give us the confidence to release our movies in the marketplace, to keep the content pipeline moving, and to provide consumers with the optionality that they are looking for. I believe this is perhaps someone else speaking. Mark Zuradi of Cinemark's come out to say this on the deal. We believe a more dynamic theatrical window whereby movie theatres continue to provide an event-sized launching platform for films that maximise box office and bolster the success of subsequent distribution channels is in the shared best interests of studios, exhibitors, and most importantly, movie goers. I don't believe you, I tell you that right now. I think you're telling a little pokey pie there. Mr. What's his face? Mark Zuradi of Cinemark fame, CEO. I don't believe you at all. I think you're just being... Yeah, you're telling a lie in a sense. Yeah, you know that your company is on the back foot at the moment. You were one of the various other theatre chains who sort of signed an open letter to Universal demanding that they rescind this deal with AMC, that it was never going to happen, that this was a black day for cinema, it was a black day for the exhibitors, that they were going to ban Universal movies out of their theatres, that no one was going to be able to watch a Universal release in a Cinemark, in a Cineworld, in any other theatre over in the States. Regal, perhaps, I think it is. I think AMC or Cineworld. And now they're backtracking at a speed of knots. And look, who can blame them? Because this pandemic is really changing the game, as I keep saying, for everyone. On a personal human scale, on a huge big conglomerate scale, on a mere sort of okay sized business scale. It's changing the game, man, and people are really having to rethink strategies, really having to rethink about how they distribute movies. The studios really having to think about how they're going to get movies into the theatres, theatrical windows and stuff like that. It's all getting rejigged. And look, I'm not going to take the same opinion as some other channels out there who think this is the death of the cinema going experience. I think the cinema going experience will evolve into a different beast completely. Some people will continue to watch movies in theatres like me. They think it's the best experience going, a communal experience with like-minded individuals who want to consume it on the biggest screen with the best sound system possible with like-minded individuals. People like that will still go. Likewise, there'll be people who won't go to the theatres. They will wait the 5 weeks or whatever it is to go and watch it digitally. And that's absolutely fine. That's why this is not the end of cinema going at all. There will be a split, like there's a split with music. Some people are still listening to music on analogue forms, the likes of records and CDs. Other people are watching, I keep saying watching, listening to it on streaming services, likes of Apple Music and obviously Spotify. And that's absolutely fine. We have got different people and all of their needs are catered to, and this is exactly what they're talking about. You need to have something that's in the best interest of the studios, the exhibitors and the moviegoers, and you need to have optionality. What a great word that was from Levinson. Optionality is absolutely key. And look, it's not as quick as the 17 days I believe it was with AMC and Universal. It's actually a 5-week period, and not every release is going to fall into the category of being in this shortened theatrical window. It will be on a play-by-play basis. The studio will get to decide, the theatre chain will probably get to decide as well. I think the likes of Fast and Furious and some of the bigger Universal releases will still have their lengthy theatrical windows. And the lesser mid-tier movies, they'll get the short little 5-week window, and then they'll go straight to streaming services. And look, I'm happy about it, because there's movies that I want to see in theatres and there's movies I don't. And this is caters to my needs. It's exactly what it says. It gives me optionality, and it gives me the best of both worlds. I can go and watch the big ones I want to see in the theatres. I can go and watch some intriguing little mid-tier ones, and likewise I can wait off 5 weeks and know that will get it straight to digital or on a streaming service. So this is great. This is a great day for me personally, for audience members, for everyone involved. It'll all equal out. The equilibrium will equal out. When we get into next year, the vaccine gets rolled out and the world goes back to a merrier place, we'll see the money starting to flow again into theatre companies. We'll see the money flowing into studios. Some of these deals will be rejigged. I'm absolutely certain of it. But likewise, there'll be a changed world. We will go irrevocably towards digital consumption, because that's the way of the world. But look guys, I'm going to move on to topic number 3 here. It's Stephen Caple Jr. He has been in the news. He is ready to direct a new Transformers movie, and this is great news for anyone who's a fan of Transformers. I was a fan growing up, kind of lost track with it. I'm not Michael Bay's biggest fan. I've said before, I think his last great movie was The Rock in 1995 or 6 with Nick Cage, Sean Connery, Ed Harris. The guy's just, he's all bravado, he's all show, it's all big bombastic visuals, and there's no real palpable meat to the bones of the story. He doesn't like to focus on the development of characters, of the story itself, making it something that connects with multi-demographics. It's just all big flair and bombasticism, is that a word? I've just made it up. Bombacism? I don't know, but you know what I mean. He's just about the visual flares and stuff. He's like a poor man's Zack Snyder in a sense, and him getting given the heave-ho treatment, booted out of the franchise, because there was talk of them going back to the Michael Bay element, that they were going to split it. There was multiple Transformers movies being pitched, and they were going to go back from the Bumblebee sort of stuff with Travis Knight, of course, who was an amazing director. He'd done the likes of Kubo and the Two Strings. Gave us a really poignant, great little story, a coming-of-age story in Bumblebee, and I really enjoyed that difference in tone, that difference of storytelling, the lack of focus on the big, huge spectacle, the visuals. Until the last sort of half hour, 45 minutes, of course, John Cena was in it, so you're always going to get that element, but he handled it better. And that's what I want to see from Stephen Caple Jr. and his potential foray into the Transformers franchise. I say potential because they do say in this article that it hasn't yet been signed off. I'm pretty sure they do. It may be another article I read on Empire, but I'm pretty sure it's not been signed off yet. But it says here, according to Deadline, Paramount and Hasbro have tapped Stephen Caple Jr. to direct the new Transformers movie. Caple Jr. most recently directed Creed 2, which received very positive reviews and made over $200 million worldwide. His hiring comes after Paramount selected Joby Harold's script to be the basis of the 2022 film. Allowing him to finish the script so executives could begin meeting with directors. And it isn't known who all met for the job, but Caple Jr. was selected as the best person to tackle Transformers. I think this is great news, as I did say. I think he's a really talented director. He's done a great job with Creed 2. I liked the sort of the story with him sort of focusing on his father and his interaction in his life, sort of the Apollo Adonis dynamic, and obviously Victor Drago and his son Ivan Drago and his son Victor Drago coming in. I really enjoyed it. I liked the dynamism in the story. I liked the performances he got out of Michael B. Jordan, and of course Sly Stallone as well at the end, that poignant moment where he goes back to his son. So I thought it was a really well directed movie, and I see no real objections to this guy coming in. I think he's an up and comer, and this could make him. It really could make his career, if his career's not already made anyway after making a hit with Michael B. Jordan in Creed 2. Jordan actually went out his way to pick Stephen Caple Jr. too. He didn't want Stallone directing the second movie, so I don't think you can have a better seal of approval than having a man of that calibre picking you personally to direct a movie. So, but if his career's not already sort of up in the upper echelons of Hollywood, then it's certainly going to be getting there if he can hit the ball out the park, have another huge blockbuster hit with a Transformers movie. I just hope that this script which has been selected by the studio. I hope that it is a more introspective, humanistic script. It's going to focus on the characters first and foremost, and we have the Transformers and the action happening over and above that. That's what I want to see. I want them to continue on the theme explored in Bumblebee. I do not want to see a return to those horrific, hollow, brutal Transformers movies that we got from Bay. So I'm celebrating this as a win for Transformers. I think this is going to be positive. I think they've learnt the lessons from Bumblebee, and I think this is a continuation of what Travis Knight was doing. And time will tell if I'm correct. I hope I am. But look, guys, that's going to bring me on to the middle part of the show I like to affectionately call the blog rundown, where we do what I do, I should say. It's a singular experience tonight. Discuss the last 3 written movie reviews from our blog that I didn't touch upon on a previous movie news show. And the first one coming in tonight is I'll try and up. Yeah, I did get the macro right, thank God. The other one would have brought up my ugly mug in the studio. The studio. And it said The Owners 2020. It's a DM Anderson review, and look, it's Maisie Williams of Arya Stark, Game of Thrones fame. Of course, she appeared in the New Mutants fairly recently. She's been sort of fleeing the nest and trying to expand out her acting capabilities, her career, if you like. And it's a mighty fine poster, I have to say. By all accounts, a sort of multi-antagonist movie where we have a group of robbers entering a property and getting what's coming to them, when it turns out that the owners are every bit as nefarious, if not more nefarious, than the robbers. And this is what Dave has had to say about it. He says, however, Dr. Huggins and Ellen aren't quite as helpless as they seem, and the real torment has just begun. Maintaining a ruse of being helpful and sympathetic. I'm going to try and read it off the screen, but the camera's in the way, so it's going to be mighty difficult. Dr. Huggins slowly turns the tables on them in ways that would be unfair to reveal here. Sure, the title more than less has us suspecting something sinister, and the Hugginses before we even see them, but there are still plenty of narrative surprises and well-timed shocks. While the performances are all effective, McCoy totally steals the film, never breaking the character's kindly demeanour, even after his motives and secrets become known. In fact, his jovialty, I think that's how you say it, actually enhances the menace. He finishes up by saying the conclusion might infuriate a few viewers, though it's certainly effective. Elsewhere, The Owners is a lot of fun with compelling story, interesting characters and tension-filled sequences. Too bad the title gives away the film's biggest surprise, but that's a minor quip. This sounds very interesting indeed. I love it when the tables are turned on would-be intruders and they get what's coming to them. Of course, Home Alone was the most famous variant of that sort of subgenre within. Is it a horror? I don't know if it's a horror movie. Certainly, I can't even get the genre on this website, but yeah, it's a horror. It's a horror. So I like that. It's a sort of subgenre of horror. Of course, Home Alone wasn't a horror by any means. It's a sort of Christmas family adventure. But when it's done right, it's a great experience. And look, I don't know if Maisie Williams is playing I think she's playing one of the muggers, the sort of the robbers, and it's the older chaps on this poster who are actually the homeowners. It looks very nefarious, and when it's handled correctly, it's very intriguing. I like the fact he's not gave away any spoilers, so that allows me to perhaps go in and give it a bash. I'm a big fan of Maisie Williams. I think she's a brilliant young lady, a really good actor, and I can't wait to see where her career moves on in the future. But look, guys, I'm going to move on to the second movie review on the blog rundown tonight. It's the Scare package. This is once again a DM Anderson review. DM does love his horrors. I think he is a subscriber to, I'm trying to remember that actual subscription service, the streaming service. There's one solely dedicated to horror movies. I think he's a subscriber to it, so he gets a lot of horror movies in here. And by all accounts, again, this I'm saying by all accounts, I just love saying by all accounts. It's my favourite word of the week, of every week really. He has this to say about it. I'm going to stop gibbering and just go straight to the man's conclusion, the sort of summary of this movie. He goes on to say, all too often movies this self-aware end up being too enamoured with themselves, like someone in love with the smell of their own farts. Another great analogy from Dave. However, Scare Package never plays like it's superior to the genre it's having fun with. There's an earnestness to the whole thing that's as endearing as it is amusing. With its charming and appropriate 80s aesthetic, this may not be the best horror film I've seen this year, but it's certainly the funnest. Sounds very interesting, man. Look, I love horror, I really do. And I love it when they explore satirical targets that are unrelated to horror. As DM does say in this, such as nerds, TV binge watchers, and toxic masculinity. I like it when satire starts to drip into any movie genre, really, but when it drips into horror, it's done really. We've seen it with obviously Jordan Peele in recent years. When it's done well, then it really is a compelling watch. And yeah, I'm well on board to give any good horror movie a bash. Right now we're doing the sort of Indian movies, though. We're going down the rabbit hole, so maybe I will until I get to watch this one. But once again, I thank DM for his truly stupendous writing. It's much better than mine. And if you go back into the blog rundown at that link there, you can read my movie reviews and you'll see just how terribly written they are in comparison to a DM Anderson. But look, this is the man's final review on the blog rundown tonight. It's a DM special tonight. Trilogy of movie reviews. This one's called Spree, and look at that. That just looks like he just looks like a Tim Burton character, doesn't he, really? He looks like the type of guy that Johnny Depp would play, with those long sort of greasy bangs, sort of reminiscent of the grunge era in the 1990s, a sort of Kurt Cobain, Dave Grohl. I was about to say Chris Novoselic, but he didn't have hair, even back then. Well, he actually did, I'm talking shit, he did have hair back then, but it wasn't like that. But look, man, I've read this movie review as well. That guy's face rings a bell. What's he been in? It does ring a bell. It's got one of those faces. But look, yeah, I read it. By all accounts, it's about a guy who's trying to secure fame online. He's trying to get a viral hit, but he's just not charismatic enough. He's just not interesting enough. It's almost like a movie written about me, in a sense. I'm not charismatic enough and I'm not interesting enough. But yeah, he's trying to do it. No one's watching him. And he has to sort of succumb to killing people live on air. So it's got a sinister sort of vibe, a tone to it. And by all accounts, I'll say this again, DM says this about it. He says that it's not at all like a Joaquin Phoenix Joker movie where there's not even an ounce of empathy for the character. He has this to say: this is obviously intentional. He's increasingly unlikable, and desperation for attention's making him look uncomfortably pathetic. That's what the sort of pretext of that first sentence is. But unlike such socially maladjusted main characters as Travis Bickle defends or Joaquin Phoenix's Joker, we never feel an ounce of empathy for him, even in black comedy. That's important. Ultimately, Kurt is as insufferable to the audience as he is to Jesse, the popular comedian he fixates on to a creepy level. Don't all of these little basement dwelling sort of peely-wally gonks have that fixation? It's very strange, isn't it? He says this in conclusion: I'm pretty sure there are people out there right now, phones in hand, who are just as fame obsessed as Kurt. Of course there is. The world is absolutely overpopulated with them, Dave. People just want to secure fame no matter what. It doesn't care if what they're doing is actually of an interest to them. As long as it gets them famous and people get to view their ugly mug many, many times, that makes them happy. But look, he has this to say: Spree squanders the opportunity to have any real fun at their expense. Despite Keary's excellent unnerving performance, a far cry from his role in Stranger Things. Stranger Things! He's in Stranger Things. He's the older kid who's going out with the older lady in it, girl in it. That's right, I remember, that's where I seen his face from. Being around Kurt is mostly just depressing. That's the general gist of it. But look, man, yeah, I understand what you're saying. I'm not a huge fan of movies that make me feel really uncomfortable to the point where I'm just watching this weird little skinny dweeb of a guy who's not getting enough vitamin D and not getting enough sun and just fixating on people and killing people. I like my horror movies, as I said before, to be more psychological, and if they're not psychological, to have a degree of intelligence to them. I'll maybe step back a little bit on that. There's three types of horror movies I really enjoy. Psychological horror movies, which are done really well, like Stanley Kubrick's The Shining, and a whole array of other ones that don't spring to mind immediately. And then the bloodthirsty, stupid, superficial horror movies, slashers, like Scream back in the day. Movies like that are okay, I can watch them. And then a sort of Jordan Peele intelligent horror movie, which is doing satire and satirising things that are happening in the real world, if you like. Movies like that, I can do various different kinds of horror movies, but I can't do ones that just make you uncomfortable and it's about some dweeb could be out there. It's not for me. And by all accounts, it's not really for DM either, because he's not damned it with a lot of praise, really, is he? But wait, that is going to round up. I'm going to rift again. Do apologise. That's going to round up the blog rundown on tonight's show. As you can see there, I've just done it. movieburnerentertainment.org/blog. If you want to go along and be infused by a whole array of brilliant written movie reviews about a wide variation of movies out there, B movies, big blockbuster movies, independent movies, everything in between, go to that blog, that link, and you will have all of your needs dealt with in a sense. But look, I'm going to move on to the fourth topic on the show tonight. The show seems unbelievably long tonight, man. Unbelievably long. I feel like I've been speaking for about 50 minutes. And I'm sure I haven't, but it feels like it's been going on for an eternity. But look, I digress. As I says, the fourth topic on the show tonight is all about Tony Stark and him. Why resurrecting, not re-resurrecting, I'm making words up again. Why resurrecting Tony Stark for the MCU is a terrible idea. This is coming in from Cinema Blend, and I'm not even going to kid on that I'm going to be reading through this entire article, because I'm not. I'm just going to read the general points that they're making and see if I agree or disagree with them. But I can tell you right now, on a surface, superficial level, I'm mostly disagreeing, because there's a reason for that. But wait, this is what the first point is. Bringing back Iron Man completely nullifies the emotional impact of Avengers Endgame. And they're right, it does. It absolutely does. The sacrifice of Tony Stark was a special one. This was a guy who went from a selfish, narcissistic, super intelligent philanthropist, I think that's what you call him, and he didn't care about anybody. In the end of this journey through this Infinity Saga, he makes the ultimate sacrifice. He kills himself, sacrifices a life of the woman he loves and a young daughter to save half the universe from being snapped out of existence permanently. So that was a great moment, and they're right, that would nullify it completely, and I'm not at all for nullifying it completely. Again, I've got a theory that I like to regurgitate again and again and again that can get round that, it can circumvent it. Second point they've made is bringing back Tony Stark repeats the zero stakes mistake DC and Marvel made in comics. Comics are a different ballgame completely. They are written by a wide array of different writers. They take place over many, many decades. 75 years, I think Batman is, if not more. You need to regurgitate storylines, you need to regurgitate characters. You can't have a character like Captain America or Iron Man or Spider-Man being killed off in one comic 50 years ago, and then that's them gone forever. Irrevocably unreplaceable characters gone. You can't have that, man. So there's a limit to the creativeness, to the brilliance of people creating new characters. You've just seen it. Some of the characters that come out now are shit. They're nowhere near these iconic old characters like Batman and stuff. So you can't compare a cinematic universe to the comics. Comics are a different beast completely. So I disagree with that point. And then I don't know how many points there is in this article. There may be too many. But this is the third one. Marvel already passed the torch. There's no need to retread old ground. Well, they did pass the torch, Cinema Blend. You're absolutely right. But they passed the torch to a character, a property, if you'd like, which is owned by another studio. Peter Parker and Spider-Man are owned by Sony Pictures. So Disney are kind of the whims of Sony Pictures. They have to renegotiate the deal every 3, 4, 5 years. And I'm sure the terms get crapper and crapper. It's almost like Lando Calrissian on the Cloud City in Bespin and Empire Strikes Back. This deal's getting worse all the time, and Vader keeps changing the goalposts. So you can't really pass the baton over to a character you don't own. They have done it. There's scope to do something with that over the course of the next 2-3 movies. But after that point, they have to renegotiate the deal and get Tom Holland back into the MCU, and it happens again and again, like an endless loop, like Ngomadu, whatever the character was at the end of Doctor Strange, that of course Doctor Strange gives in a timeless loop with. You just have to keep rewriting or renegotiating deals again and again, so that doesn't really work either. And I'm all for Peter Parker carrying the torch, incidentally. I think he's a great character. He deserves more respect than he's getting in the MCU at the moment. Tom Holland's young as hell, and he can carry that character for a decade easily, so I'm all for it passing on, but they don't own the rights to that character. And that's it. That's the general gist of why Cinema Blend believe it's a terrible idea to resurrect Tony Stark into the MCU. Well, I disagree, because I believe that this character can be resurrected in a roundabout way. And you don't have to sort of ruin the passing of the baton. You don't have to ruin the emotional impact of Avengers Endgame and of course the entire Infinity Saga as a whole. And you don't have to sort of bring back the Halicon days of the comics and the zero stakes. And how do you do it? You do it by utilising the multiverse concept. It's going to be explored in WandaVision, it's going to be explored in Spider-Man 3, apparently, and of course in Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. And you utilise that to bring Tony Stark back in a different form, not a living, breathing human form, but as an alternate universe version of the character who is now imbued into a sort of Jarvis-like AI system for the suits. That's how you bring Tony Stark back. He can appear in a sort of holographic form. He can appear as a solely audio performance. He comes in and records some lines. That's how you bring Tony Stark back, man, without nullifying the emotional impact, without destroying the stakes that have been built up in the end of the Infinity Saga, without destroying Peter Parker carrying the baton on. You do it by bringing them back in a different form through this sort of storyline of multiverses. And that's what I would do, man. I think Robert Downey Jr. is too towering a figure. We've seen what he's doing. It's devastating watching this guy wasting his time with Doolittle movies. He needs to come back to the MCU. He needs to come back quick, man. Just do it in a different vein. He holds the gang together, man. I want to see Steve Rogers back at some point too. I want them all back. And you can do it. And you can do it, and I want it done. So, on that note, I'm going to move on because I've not got much more to say about it. This is a sort of interconnected topic, MCU related. It's all about Thor: Love and Thunder, and by all accounts, Chris Pratt and potentially Vin Diesel are going to be joining the cast of Taika Waititi's Thor: Love and Thunder. This is coming in from CBR, I do believe, comic book I should say, .com. We don't go to CBR, that's a grimy website. They made some ridiculous article up about how Captain America was in cinematic universe was a toxic, a white toxic masculinity character. What utter bollocks that is, man. It's one of the greatest comic book characters ever created. I'm not at all biased. What's behind me? But what I digress. This is what he. I think it was Vin Diesel who spoke about. This is what he had to say. He says, "I'm waiting and excited for my friend James Gunn to knock this next one out of the park." Of course, he's talking about Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Which we're all excited about. And he's been on to say this: Gunn took the Suicide Squad, so he's about to embark on it. Thor will also, the director talked to me about it, Thor will incorporate some of the Guardians of the Galaxy. That'll be very interesting. Nobody knows. Maybe I shouldn't have said anything. No, you shouldn't. You shouldn't have said anything at all, Vin Diesel, but I'm merely happy that you did because it's gave me some content to talk about in a truly barren night for movie news. Taika had this to say as well: it's going to be really good. We've finished. We've been writing the script off and on for over a year, and I'm just actually this week doing another pass on it. It's so insane, and it's also very romantic. I'm into romance now. I want to make a romance. I want to make something I've never done or never cared for. I would like to attack something like that. And when Taika attacks something he's never done before, my God, does it work? Because the man is such a stellar filmmaker. He's just a brilliant mind, really. You've seen it with Jojo Rabbit, what this guy can do. You've seen it with What They Do in the Shadows. You've seen it with The Hunt for the Wilder People. Everything this guy touches is brilliant because he's just amazing. He's in every way he's amazing. He's an amazing film writer. He's an amazing actor. And I'm supremely excited for Thor: Love and Thunder. I was excited for it before anyway. We're bringing back Natalie Portman's Jane, the Mighty Thor storyline. It's going to be tinged with tragedy, potentially romance, as Taika has alluded to. She's going to have cancer. Force keeping her alive, or the power of Force keeping her alive, but it's keeping her alive, but it's also making her worse, strangely. It's confusing. And now that you've added in Chris Pratt and that sort of dynamic between Peter Quaife, Star-Lord and Thor again, the bickering, the sort of bravado, the masculinity battering off of each other. And then potentially Vin Diesel coming in. I think he does Groot. I'm pretty sure he does Groot. That's it, Groot he does. Bradley Cooper does... I think he does Rocket, doesn't he? I think Vin Diesel does Groot. So you're going to have Groot in there. I don't see why all of the Avengers, or the Guardians, don't come into this movie now. I just don't see how we bring in Vin Diesel and Chris Pratt and we leave out a Bradley Cooper. We potentially leave out a Zoe Saldana. We leave out that other crap character with the antennae that I always forget the name of. I don't see how they don't come in now. I think that this story is going to interconnect with Guardians 3. I think that They're already dabbling with it on WandaVision and on Spider-Man 3 and on Multiverse of Madness, interconnected stories taking place over multiple movies. I think that's what we'll see here. I think we will see these two movies interconnecting into each other in a joyful manner. Can't speak tonight, guys. And I'm excited for it, man. I'm excited to see the dynamic between Chris Pratt and Chris Hemsworth once again. It was one of the best things about Endgame. And just seeing them arguing, I'm the leader. Yeah. I can't wait to see it continue, and I hope that Chris Hemsworth's Thor comes back into Guardians Volume 3 too. And we get to see some creative sharing between James Gunn and Taika Waititi. Two guys who think very similarly, similar brand of humour. Brilliant directors who utilise music very well too. They blend together beautifully, and before I even speak, I can't wait to see Taika Waititi utilising Chris Pratt, because look what he done for Chris Hemsworth, look what he done for the Thor character. He took it from this stuffy Shakespearean character and made it really funny. He was ad-libbing, Chris Pratt ad-libbing as Star-Lord alongside Chris Hemsworth. Man, this movie is going to be dynamite. Cannot wait to see it. Can't wait to see Waititi, the performances he gets out of these characters, these actors. But look, I'm going to move on to the final topic on... That's not the final topic, man. The final topic on the show tonight. It's all about Johnny Depp. My favourite guy in the world at the moment. We speak about him about 6 times a week now. We only do 5 shows. One of them's a movie review, so I don't know how we're speaking about it 6 times a week, but I always find a way to fit Johnny into a show, and this one's all about Captain Jack Sparrow. He's lost the role of Gellert Grindelwald. He's been given the heave-ho treatment with Warner Brothers. They mutually consented out of the contract. He gets to keep $10 million by all account for filming one movie, one scene I should say. So who's laughing all the way to the bank? Johnny's laughing all the way to the bank. And look, people have been petitioning, fans more specifically have been petitioning. This is coming in from Cinema Blend. I don't know why I'm bringing it up. I don't know what that is. Essentially, they've created a petition and they're trying on change.org, asking Disney to bring back the Jack Sparrow character, bring back Johnny Depp, and it's continuing to receive new signatures apparently consistently, even following the whole civil libel lawsuit that he lost over here in the United Kingdom to the scum. We like to call it here affectionately the Sun, most other people call it, but it is the scum because they're full of scumbag writers and they've got a scumbag owner, and they're just scum. I wouldn't wipe my arse with that rag, I see it time and again. But following that, people are still backing the man to the hilt, and that's why I says last night when we spoke about Amber Heard, and there was an article coming in, I can't recall the website, maybe in Screen Rant, and they suggested that Johnny had perhaps lost something palpable image-wise with the audience worldwide. I says it was bullshit. People are firmly still behind this guy. You get 1 million signatures essentially supporting the removal of Amber Heard from her role as Mera in Aquaman and in Justice League. This guy has the vast majority of backing from fans, film fans worldwide. You know, of those gonk minority that are backing this man-beating domestic abuser who's had previes for it. Johnny had no previes for it. But he's firmly get people behind him, and I'm one of them that's behind him. And but I'm not behind, I have to say, with that in mind, I'm not behind the reintroduction of Captain Jack Sparrow. I'm not behind the continuation of the Pirates of the Caribbean movies. I think they have reached their natural conclusion, and there is no need to go back to them. There is just simply no need to bring Johnny Depp back to this franchise. I think we've had 7 movies. I'm not counting, but I think we've had 7. And I think it was done probably after 5, but they stretched it out because of Depp. And the magic he brings to that performance, admittedly, he's carried the franchise the entire way. There's been some brilliant performances in there, but he has most definitely carried the franchise, a multi-million-dollar grossing franchise at that. And that speaks volumes for the man and the fan base he has worldwide. As I says, they're firmly behind him. But I don't want to see Captain Jack Sparrow coming back, so I'm not be signing that petition. I've already signed the Amber Heard removal petition, even though Warner Brothers won't listen to it. But no, I can't get on board with this one, so I was just rounding the show up in a nice little light-hearted manner. And I was going to do an impersonation of Johnny Depp's Captain Jack Sparrow by saying, I'll not do it, it'll be terrible, it'll be absolutely terrible. So I'll round the show up on that note, guys. Let's not do impersonations of Captain Jack Sparrow. But look, what's your thoughts on the array of topics I've touched upon today on the show? What do you make about Black Panther 2 and the non-utilisation, I don't know why I've said it in that way, it's a very complicated way to say this sentence, and then not using a body double CGI off Chadwick Boseman. Is that something you firmly agree with, like me, that it's the correct decision ethically, morally, to not bring back a guy who's just passed away 2.5-3 months ago, a year perhaps after his passing, in CGI form? I think that's a terrible idea. What's your thoughts on it? What do you make about Cinemark signing a deal with Universal akin to what AMC done to shorten the theatrical release window? Is that something you think's an organic sort of evolution of the film experience consumption? Do you think, like me, it's all going to go digital at one point like music did before it? What do you make about Stephen Caple Jr. signing up potentially to do a Transformers movie? Do you think this is a continuation of Bumblebee and Travis Knight's more character driven Transformers movies? Is it something you agree with? What do you make about Tony Stark? Do you want to see Tony Stark coming back to the MCU in some vein? Do you think he could come back as a Jarvis-like AI and circumvent all of the issues, like the emotional stuff and stuff like that had been created with his passing? Finally, what do you make about Chris Pratt and Vin Diesel and potentially other Guardians joining for Love and Thunder? And finally, Jack Sparrow. Do you want to see Jack Sparrow returning triumphantly? I don't. You can comment below and let me know what your thoughts are on all the topics I touched upon on tonight's show. You can also like the video if you've enjoyed it and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more movie news content like this in the future. And that's what you'll get, guys. You'll get more movie news like this in the future as soon as tomorrow, when me and Stephen will be joining up once again to do another movie news show. But look, as ever, until then, I'm going to bid you farewell by doing a Captain Jack Sparrow impersonation. I says I wouldn't do it, but I'm going to. What say you to that? Bye-bye.